The last time I saw my daughter before that rainy Tuesday in November, she was sitting in the passenger seat of a brand new Honda Civic, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. Her stepmother, Brenda, had spent 3 months convincing me that sending Maya to a private art design institute in upstate New York was the only way to secure her future. I signed the tuition checks. I paid for the apartment lease. I watched her drive off with a trunk full of new clothes and a heart full of big dreams. 4 months later, I was standing in the gravel parking lot of a discounted grocery outlet in South Toledo, holding a plastic bag of wiper fluid, when I saw a young woman sitting on an upturned milk crate by the sliding glass doors. Welcome to Dad's Pure Revenge. If you believe a father's most sacred job on this earth is to protect his children, no matter who tries to stand in the way, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below letting me know where you're tuning in from today. Every single comment helps us share these stories with fathers who need to know they aren't alone. To understand how my daughter ended up on that wet concrete, you have to understand who Maya is. Maya isn't the kind of kid who asks for help. When her biological mother passed away from non-Hodgkin lymphoma back in 2018, Maya was only 14. Instead of breaking down, she stepped up. She learned how to cook her mother's exact recipe for pot roast. She kept the family calendar organized on the refrigerator with color-coded dry erase markers. When I'd come home late from managing operations at the regional logistics depot, exhausted to my bones, I'd find a note on the kitchen counter next to a covered plate. Dad, eat first. Work can wait until morning. She spent her teenage years holding our world together while I was busy trying to keep the lights on and the mortgage paid. My name is Arthur Vance. I'm 52 years old, and for 26 years I've worked as an operations manager for a commercial freight line based out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. My single biggest flaw for a very long time was my obsession with avoiding conflict at home. After my wife died, the silence in our house was heavy, almost suffocating. So when I met Brenda 3 years later at a Chamber of Commerce mixer, her loud, decisive, take-charge personality felt like a lifeline. I thought I was bringing structure back into our lives. What I was actually doing was handing the keys to our family over to a woman who viewed my daughter as nothing more than a financial obstacle in the way of her own son's future. Brenda had a 22-year-old son from her previous marriage named Preston. Preston didn't hold down a job, didn't go to school, and drove a restored 1978 Chevy El Camino that I ended up paying the repair bills on more times than I care to admit. But to Brenda, Preston was a misunderstood genius who just needed the right startup capital to launch his life. Tuesday, November 17th, 4:15 in the afternoon. I was in Toledo, covering a 3-day logistics audit for our northern terminal. The rain was coming down in that steady, freezing gray slush that hits the Midwest right before winter sets in properly. My windshield wiper on the driver's side started tearing, so I pulled off Route 20 into the lot of a discount food plaza to pick up a replacement blade. As I walked toward the entrance, I heard a voice. It was soft, raspy, and shaking from the cold. "Please, sir, I don't need cash. Just a can of Similac Sensitive. That's all. Just one can." I stopped. The sound of that voice hit my ear like a physical blow. I turned around. Sitting against the dirty brick wall, wrapped in a threadbare men's denim jacket 3 sizes too big, was a girl holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a faded yellow receiving blanket. Her hair was matted, her cheeks were hollowed out, and her lips were blue. It was Maya, my daughter, who was supposed to be living in a high-rise student apartment on West 8th Street in Manhattan, was sitting in the mud in Toledo, begging strangers for baby formula. I dropped my store purchase onto the gravel. "Maya?" She flinched, pulling the blanket tighter around the baby. When she looked up and her eyes met mine, her whole face crumpled. She didn't try to hide. She didn't try to run. She just burst into tears, a terrifying, shuddering sob that seemed to draw from the very bottom of her lungs. "Dad?" she whispered. "Dad, please don't look at me." I fell to my knees right there in the rain. right on the wet asphalt, and pulled her into my arms. Beneath that oversized jacket, I could feel her collarbones. She was skin and bones. In her arms, a tiny baby girl with a full head of dark hair blinked up at the gray sky. "Who is this?" I breathed, my voice cracking completely. "Maya, what is happening? What are you doing here?" "This is Lily," she sobbed, burying her face in my wet shoulder. "She's 3 weeks old, Dad. They dumped me here. They took everything." If this story is hitting close to home for you already, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to keep sharing these real stories with you. I didn't ask another question in that parking lot. I carried her and the baby to my truck, cranked the heater to maximum, and drove straight to the nearest urgent care clinic on Telegraph Road. While the nurse, a kind woman named Mrs. Gable, who looked at me with deep understanding, wrapped Lily in a warm hospital blanket and brought Maya a cup of hot broth, the story finally came out. And every sentence that left my daughter's mouth felt like a physical blow straight to my chest. 5 months ago, Maya found out she was pregnant. The father was a boy from her community college class who vanished the moment he saw the positive test line. Terrified and alone, Maya had done what any scared 19-year-old would do. She went to her family. But I was away on a 2-week freight dispatch in Texas at the time. So she went to Brenda. Brenda didn't call me. Brenda didn't text me. Instead, Brenda sat Maya down at our kitchen table and told her that if I found out about the pregnancy, the stress would give me another heart attack. I'd had a mild scare 2 years prior. Brenda told her that I would disown her, that I was already struggling financially, and that her presence in the house was destroying my chance at a peaceful retirement. Then Brenda offered her a solution. Brenda told Maya that her sister lived in Toledo and ran a temporary housing shelter for young mothers. And she said if Maya went there quietly, Brenda would personally handle her living expenses, make sure she was taken care of, and transfer her college tuition funds to cover her medical bills. She made Maya hand over her cell phone, claiming she'd buy her a new one with an unlisted number so the baby's father couldn't harass her. She gave her a $75 prepaid burner phone and put her on a Greyhound bus to Toledo. When Maya arrived at the address in Toledo, there was no shelter. There was no sister. It was a run-down rooming house owned by a friend of Preston's. For 4 months, Maya stayed in a room with a lock that didn't work, using what little money she had left to buy food. Every time she called Brenda on the burner phone asking to speak to me, Brenda told her I was still furious, that I refused to talk to her, and that if she tried to come home, I'd have the police remove her for trespassing. 2 weeks after Lily was born, Preston showed up at the rooming house. He told Maya that the landlord was clearing out the building. He loaded her 2 bags into the back of his El Camino, drove her to the parking lot of the Discount Food Plaza in South Toledo, handed her $20, and drove away. "She told me you hated me, Dad." Maya wept, her voice barely louder than a whisper as she sat on the exam table holding her sleeping daughter. "She said you told her you never wanted to see my face again." I sat in the plastic chair beside her bed, holding her cold, raw hands in mine. The rage inside me wasn't loud. It wasn't screaming or punching walls. It was a cold, dense weight that settled at the base of my spine. I realized in that room that my desire to keep the peace in my household over the last 3 years hadn't brought peace at all. It had allowed a monster to isolate my motherless child and throw her out onto the street with an infant. I called my district manager right then and took 4 weeks of accrued emergency leave. Then I called an old friend from my high school days, Clinton Webb, who ran a private family law practice back in Fort Wayne. Clinton didn't charge me a dime for the initial consultation. When I brought Maya and Lily to his office 2 days later, Clinton listened to the entire story in complete silence, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When Maya finished speaking, Clinton laid his pen down, looked over his reading glasses at me, and said 3 simple words. "We have her." You see, Brenda had made one catastrophic mistake born of her own greed. She thought she was clever. When I looked into my financial records with Clinton over the next 48 hours, the paper trail revealed everything. Over the previous 4 months, Brenda had been forging my signature on tuition withdrawal forms from the educational trust account I'd established for Maya after her mother's passing. A total of $42,000 had been drawn from that account. Where had that money gone? It hadn't gone to an art institute in New York. It hadn't gone to Maya's medical care. Brenda had transferred $35,000 of those funds directly into an LLC registered in Preston's name, a high-risk cryptocurrency investment scheme that had completely collapsed 3 weeks prior, wiping out every single cent. The remaining $7,000 had been spent on new furniture for our living room and a down payment on a boat trailer for Preston. Brenda had systematically stripped my daughter of her inheritance, lied about her existence, and left her to freeze in a parking lot, all to fund her son's worthless financial ventures. My first impulse was to drive home, throw Brenda's clothes into the front yard, and change the locks. But Clinton stopped me. "If you throw her out now," Clinton advised me as we sat in his office on Friday afternoon, "she files for divorce immediately, claims spousal support, and fights you for half of your retirement pension and the house. We don't want a messy fight where she gets to play the victimized wife. We want absolute, surgical resolution." So I went home that evening, and I acted like nothing had happened. Friday, November 20th, 6:30 in the evening. When I walked through the front door of my house, Brenda was sitting on the newly upholstered sofa, sipping a glass of white wine while watching a home renovation show. "How was Toledo, honey?" she asked, not even turning her head to look at me. "Did the terminal audit go okay?" "It went fine," I said quietly, setting my briefcase down by the coat rack. "Lots of discrepancies in the paperwork. Takes time to sort out who belongs where." "Well, you work too hard," she said casually. "Oh, by the way, Preston's coming over for dinner on Sunday. He wants to discuss a new business opportunity he's looking into. He might need a small loan to get it off the ground, but I told him his stepdad would be happy to hear him out." "Is that so?" I said. "Sunday sounds fine. Let's make it a big dinner." For the next 48 hours, I lived a double life. During the day, I visited Maya and little Lily at a quiet short-term rental apartment I'd leased for them near the clinic. I bought clothes, a crib, diapers, and formula. I sat by the window watching my granddaughter sleep, feeling a quiet strength return to my chest that I hadn't felt since my first wife died. At night, I went home and sat across the dinner table from Brenda, listening to her talk about new curtains for the guest room and how Preston was finally finding his stride. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice once. Every time she spoke, I simply noted the date, the time, and the detail in my pocket notebook. Sunday, November 22nd, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The dining room table was set. Brenda had prepared a roast chicken. Preston arrived at 4:45, wearing a brand new leather jacket, bought, no doubt, with the last remnants of Maya's stolen trust money. He sat at my table, passed the gravy, and began his pitch. "So, Art," Preston said, leaning back in his chair with a full mouth, "the crypto market had a temporary dip, but this new logistics venture I'm looking at in Ohio is a guaranteed win. We just need about 15 grand to secure the regional rights. Mom said you might be able to draw from Maya's college fund, since she's clearly not using it right now." Brenda took a slow sip of her wine. "It really is a smart move, Arthur. Maya made her choice to walk away from this family. There's no point letting that capital just sit in an account gathering dust when Preston can actually build something with it." I laid my fork down on my plate. The sound of the metal hitting the porcelain was the only noise in the room. "You're right, Brenda," I said smoothly. "Capital shouldn't just sit there." I reached into my inner jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, laying it flat on the center of the table, right between the salad bowl and the chicken. "What's that?" Brenda asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. "That's the accounting summary from First National Bank," I said. along with certified copies of the withdrawal signatures for $42,000 from Maya's educational trust over the last 4 months. Brenda's hand froze on her wine glass. Preston stopped chewing. "Arthur, what are you talking about?" Brenda said, her voice dropping an octave, trying to adopt that stern, dismissive tone she always used whenever I brought up money. "We discussed those administrative transfers. I didn't sign them, Brenda," I said quietly. "My signature was forged. On 6 separate occasions." "Now wait a minute, Art," Preston started, leaning forward. "Sit down, Preston," I said. My voice wasn't loud. It was low, flat, and completely devoid of emotion. He stopped mid-sentence and sat back. "I spent Tuesday afternoon in Toledo," I continued, looking directly into Brenda's eyes. "At a discount food plaza on Route 20. I found my daughter sitting in the freezing rain, begging strangers for baby formula because her clothes didn't fit her anymore and she hadn't eaten a full meal in 2 days. Brenda's face went entirely pale. The color drained out of her skin so fast it looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "You told her I hated her," I said. "You told her I would disown her. You put a frightened 19-year-old girl on a bus, dumped her in a slum, and let your son drop her on a sidewalk like trash so the two of you could gamble away her mother's legacy on fake currency. If you're enjoying how this unfolded, take a moment to drop a like on the video and leave a comment below. Your support means everything to the channel." "Arthur, listen to me," Brenda stammered, her composure completely shattering as she reached across the table toward my arm. "I was trying to protect you. You couldn't handle the stress. Your heart." "Do not touch me," I said cleanly. I picked up the envelope and opened it, pulling out 3 distinct sets of documents. "Option A," I said, placing the first document in front of Brenda. "This is a formal criminal complaint for bank fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny, along with an affidavit signed by Maya detailing the coercion and abandonment. Clinton Webb is standing by at his office right now. If I call him in 5 minutes, these documents are filed with the county prosecutor's office by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Grand larceny carries a mandatory minimum state prison sentence. Both of you are on the account transfers. Both of you go down." Preston's jaw dropped. Mom, what is he talking about? You said he wouldn't check." Brenda's hands began to shake uncontrollably. "Arthur, please. You wouldn't do that to us. We're family." "We are not family," I replied. "Option B is sitting right under it." I slid the second set of papers toward her. "This is a legally binding confession of judgment and a quitclaim deed. You sign over your entire interest in this house, to me immediately. You relinquish any and all claims to my retirement accounts, my savings, or spousal support. Furthermore, Preston signs a promissory note legally binding him to repay the $42,000 to Maya's trust account at a structured rate of $800 a month, backed by a lien on his El Camino and his personal assets." "That's extortion," Preston yelled, slamming his hand on the table. "That is leniency," I corrected him instantly. "You have 4 minutes to decide whether you want to sign those papers or explain to a state judge why you left a teenage girl and a newborn on a Toledo sidewalk." The room went dead silent. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway sounded like hammer blows. 11 calls, 29 calls, 34 missed calls from Preston's friends had come through on his phone over the last hour while we were sitting there, but neither of them looked at their screens. Brenda looked at Preston. Preston looked at the table. He knew, and she knew, that if the police looked into that crypto LLC, the financial paper trail would dismantle their lives in a matter of days. With trembling fingers, Brenda picked up the pen I laid beside the papers. She didn't look at me. She didn't offer a dramatic apology. She signed her name on every indicated line. Then she passed the pen to her son. Preston signed his name so hard the ink bled through the paper. "Now," I said, picking up the signed documents and sliding them safely into my briefcase. "You have 2 hours to pack your clothes into bags and leave my house. If either of you ever approaches Maya, my granddaughter, or me again. Option A goes straight to the prosecutor. I didn't watch them pack. I walked out to my truck, drove over to the rental apartment, and picked up Maya and little Lily. When we returned to the house at 8 o'clock that night, the driveway was empty. The front door was unlocked. Brenda's clothes were gone from the closet. Her vanity was cleared out, and the restored El Camino was no longer parked in the street. The house was quiet, but for the first time in 3 years, it didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. Over the next 6 months, the legal process moved with quiet precision. The quitclaim deed was recorded at the county courthouse. The house belonged entirely to me and Maya. Preston made his first 3 monthly payments on time. His mother had to take a job as a night shift intake clerk at a local storage facility to help him cover the cost. But that was no longer my concern. They live in a rented 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town now. I haven't spoken a single word to either of them since that Sunday evening at the dinner table. Maya didn't return to New York, and she didn't need to. She enrolled in a graphic design program at the local state university, 10 minutes from our home. Every morning at 7:30, I make a pot of coffee, pack her lunch, and hold little Lily while Maya gets ready for her morning classes. Last night, I was sitting on the back porch, listening to the quiet rustle of the oak trees in the yard. Maya came out, carrying 2 mugs of chamomile tea. She sat down in the wooden chair next to mine, handed me a mug, and looked out over the yard. "Dad?" she said softly. "Yeah, honey? Thank you for coming to Toledo." I looked at my daughter, her face full of health again, her eyes bright, her spirit restored, and I took a sip of my tea. "I was always coming, Maya," I told her. "I just took the long way around. I didn't get a tearful confession from Brenda. I didn't get a dramatic plea for forgiveness, and I didn't need one. True peace doesn't come from forcing an evil person to admit what they did wrong. It comes from building a wall high enough that they can never hurt the people you love ever again, and then turning around to focus entirely on the family standing inside it with you." Thank you for listening to this story on Dad's Pure Revenge. If this story reminded you of the lengths a parent will go to protect their children, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Stay strong, protect your family, and I'll see you in the next story.